Welcome back. Brand new season of college football has returned. The 2023 season has come to fruition and is finally here. Week 0. Few games to get us enticed. But what we're going to talk about today is we're going to go through preseason outlooks, what I think, who I think is going to dominate, win, all that kind of stuff. And then look into picks for this week, for week 0. So with that being said, let's jump into it. It's a new season here on the V.O.C. YouTube channel. My goal for this year is to do like what I usually do, give you picks, thoughts on each week, but I also want to change it up a little bit. I want to get more people involved. Hopefully I can do that this year. But for this first one, this preseason outlook, week 0, I'm going to be doing it myself to get us going, to get us rolling, and we'll see where the rest of the season takes us. So to start out, when we look at the preseason top 25, you know, I don't think really much surprise. Georgia coming off of back-to-back national titles, being at number 1, Michigan at 2, Ohio State at 3, Bama at 4, LSU at 5, USC at 6, Penn State at 7, Florida State at 8, Clemson at 9, and Washington at 10. I don't think there's a lot of surprises. I think that, and we've seen it the last few years in college football, where kind of the top kind of runs it, and you know there's different tiers, and tier 1 is here, and then tier 2 is down here, and I think that's what we see. I mean, you have 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams that I think are elite. Everybody else is kind of just out there playing for second in their conference behind these other behind those other teams. You know, no other really surprises. Texas at 11, Tennessee at 12. Great year last year. We'll see if they can do it again. You know, Notre Dame at 13, I think is very fair. I think this year will be similar to last year. But I think with this year with Notre Dame, I think they're going to win the games they're supposed to and lose the games they're supposed to. I don't think there will be that many surprises, but you never know. Utah at 14, Oregon at 15. I think the Pac-12, which is held out very strong with, you have Oregon State at 18 as well. The Pac-12 is going to be the best it's been in a long time, in the last year of the Pac-12. So I don't think there's really much surprises. I don't really take a lot into the preseason top 25. I think it gives us a good basis for what we think. Even though it could be right or wrong with some teams, a lot of these teams that are ranked now are not going to be ranked come towards the end of the season. Just like there'll be a lot of teams that aren't ranked right now that will be ranked. So it'll be interesting to see how it really works out. But I don't think anything is really surprising, and I don't take much into it. All right, what I want to do is I want to break down each Power 5 conference and kind of give you what I think the outlook for each conference is going to be, starting with the Big Ten here. I think the Big Ten East has a chance to be the best division in all of college football. When you look at, you have Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. Those 3 teams, very, very solid. Each of those teams should have 10 wins at the end of the year. And we could see a scenario where 2 of those teams are, 11-1, one team's undefeated. You know, it'll be very interesting to see how it all works out. Now they all have to play each other, but I think it'll be interesting to see if they're all good, like I think they will be. But that will be interesting. Like I said, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, I think they'll all finish in the top 10. I think Penn State this year is going to take a leap. Now, I know we've been saying that under James Franklin. He's now been there for quite a few years. But I really like their quarterback. They have good running backs. Offensive line, I think they're going to be better than what they have been in years past. I think they have a complete team. But their problem is they play against Michigan and they play against Ohio State. So we have to rank them up against that. And James Franklin and Penn State in the past have not been good against those teams. Looking at Nebraska, Wisconsin, they'll be better. They still need time. First-year head coaches. I think they hired 2 great coaches in college football. With Matt Rule at Nebraska and Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, I think they both made major hires that are going to help them. But they're still a year, 2, maybe 3 years out from really competing against the East when we look at the Big Ten. I went to Michigan State. I have no problem saying this. I don't think Michigan State will make a bowl game again this year. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mel Tucker. You give him that big contract after his second year. Where do we go from here, right? Last year was bad. You lose to Michigan. You do all the things you don't want to do as a Michigan State fan, but I think this will be the year to where we really look at it and say, what is Mel Tucker and where do we go from here? Because the roster just doesn't look that good. Schedule's pretty tough. And yet again, you got to play Penn State. You got to play Michigan. You got to play Ohio State. It's going to be tough. I just wanted to highlight them as someone that went to school there. And then this is what I think the Big Ten championship will look like and who I think wins the Big Ten. I think Michigan will play Iowa in the Big Ten title game, and I think Michigan wins their third straight Big Ten title. Iowa's going to be better with Cade McNamara. They have a quarterback that can at least do something. And Michigan fans and college football fans are going to sit there and say, not very good. Well, he got Michigan Big Ten title, got them to beat Ohio State for the first time in a long time, and got them to a playoff. That's not bad. He is a very quality quarterback, and he helps Michigan get to the Big Ten title and win it for a third straight year. I just think Michigan has the formula, and they have the pieces. So even though I think Penn State's going to be good and I think Ohio State will be good, compared to those two teams, I think Michigan's better. All right, looking at the Big 12. This was a surprise year conference, right? Like you had TCU being in the national title game. You had Kansas State winning the Big 12 title. But this year, to me, I think there's a two-team race in Oklahoma and Texas. And as I think it should be every year. You are the two premier programs. You are the two programs that recruit the best in the conference. You should be really good. I think Oklahoma will have a bounce-back year under Brent Venables and with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. I just don't know how much more they're going to bounce back. You got to play Texas, and that's going to be a big thing. I think Texas is going to be very good this year. I'll talk about that towards the end of how good I think they'll be, but I think in the Big 12, I think Texas is going to be very big. I think they're going to win the Big 12 this year, and I think Quinn Ewers is going to prove that he's a top 10 pick in the NFL. He's that good of a quarterback. He can play, and we've been waiting on it. He got hurt last year, but when he played, they played very good, and they were very, very good of a team. Should have beat Alabama. He gets injured in that game. What happens if he stays healthy? I don't know. I think they win. But the problem with Texas is every year I feel like I've done this. Every year I'm like, Texas is going to be Texas, and then they go 8-4, 7-5. It'll be interesting in Steve Sarkisian's time there of they've kind of disappointed. But I feel like recruiting-wise they've done very well the last couple of years. Their offense is going to be very, very good. Defense, I think depth will be better. So I think they're going to be a very good football team. I think Texas and Oklahoma will meet again in the Big 12 title game when I think Texas wins. All right, looking at the Pac-12. Like I said earlier, I think it's the best the conference has been in a very, very long time. You have Oregon State, Oregon, Utah, and Washington. They're going to battle in the North. It's going to make that very fun. Each of those teams, very, very good. I think each of those teams could win 9 games. That's how good I think they are. So you look at that battle, who's going to win that? I think Washington will win the North with Michael Penix. That offense is just too explosive. They have a lot of things going for them compared to the other teams. And then you look at the South. I think USC is clear number 1 in the South. I think that they will easily win that one. And Lincoln Riley's going to prove that he's gotten the USC team better. They were far better last year than what they'd been before he got there. The defense is only going to take a next step up. And then they have good players on defense. And Corey Foreman, I think, is going to be that guy. Defensive lineman, was a very high recruit coming out of high school. I think he's going to prove why he was that high recruit and really help them take the next step where they lost to Utah in the Pac-12 title game, where Caleb Williams did get hurt. I think they can take the next step with their schedule, with the way the conference is set up. I think they should easily win it. I think they will beat Washington in the Pac-12 title game. Looking at the ACC, to me, there's teams that, with these conferences going in, that we're like, there's two-headed monster. I think this is another conference where I think there is a two-headed monster. But you have teams like North Carolina, Miami, NC State. Those type of teams are going to play spoiler. Miami's getting there, just not there yet. North Carolina, they have Drake May. That's going to help them and keep them in a lot of games. Florida State has talent to be great. just with Mike Norvell as their coach, I don't know yet. He, to me, I don't know if he's the guy. I don't know if he's the guy that can win you a big one. He might be able to get you 8-4, 9-3, good, maybe 10-2. At Florida State, that's not good enough. The team I really like is Clemson. They have young talent waiting to build off of last year's struggles and some of last year's highlights. You know, Clemson last couple of years has not been Clemson. They have guys that are very, very hungry. I talked about Drake May, you know, being the best quarterback in the conference, but I think Cade Klubnik for Clemson, their quarterback, can really show he can be on par with him as well. He's athletic. He's young. He had spurts last year where you watched him and you go, this guy can really play. And it will be fun to see him now with the full confidence in the staff of this is your team around you. You've had the whole offseason that this is your team. It'll be very interesting to see what he does. Will Shipley at running back. They have a duo at running back. Will Shipley just alone is very good, but I think their running back room is going to be very good. I think Florida State and Clemson will meet in the ACC title game, where I think Clemson will come out victorious. Now, what's going to be tough is Clemson's going to, you know, they're going to have to play each other at least once in the regular season. And then if I think it ends up like it should, they should meet in the ACC title game against each other again. And that's going to be a tough game, but I think Clemson beats them. I just do. When it comes down to it, I trust Dabo over Mike Norvell. Dabo's got the track record. He's changed some things, brought in a new offensive coordinator. That's going to be major help for them. Their offense last year was very stagnant after losing, you know, previous offensive coordinators. So another year removed with Brent Venables not being there. I think Dabo's figured it out a little bit more. He needed a year to be like, what do I need to do? How do I do this? And I think it will help him tremendously. All right, moving on to the SEC, who, you know, this is the #1 conference in all of college football. I think the Big Ten has a shot this year, I said, with some division things, but at the end of the day, we know who rules college football. That is the SEC. The biggest question, can Georgia win 3 in a row? They have a new starting quarterback. Look, Stetson Bennett's no longer there. A new quarterback, very unproven. And, you know, I dogged on Stetson Bennett a lot last year, especially early in the year, but when it came down to it, he always made plays. He always got you to where he needed to get you. He always exceeded expectations. You always looked at it and go, wow, I never thought he could do that. I didn't think he could do that. And then he just does it. So that's going to be a big loss. He lost a lot of pieces on defense. When you win 2 in a row with the amount of guys they've had drafted the last 2 years, it's very interesting. You know, their new quarterback Beck has a lot of big shoes to fill up for the offense. I still trust Kirby and all that, but it's just going to be tough. No team has won 3 in a row in the common football era. It's very tough to do, and it will be very interesting. The other question is Alabama, right? Down year for Alabama in their regard. Down year, they won the Sugar Bowl, right? Like, that's a down year for them. But you lose Bryce Young, and you lose a guy like Will Anderson. Bryce Young did a lot for them. He won that Texas game for you last year. Just did a lot of things. When you look at their quarterback room now, I don't know what they have. You know, it's not a whole lot there. It'll be very interesting to see what they do. They bring in Tommy Rees. Tyler Buckner comes from Notre Dame. I didn't think he was very good at Notre Dame. So it's a very weird feeling of going around Alabama. I think their defense will be very good. Their offense is going to be the one where I go, I don't know. I just don't know. I think team I'm very high on in the SEC is LSU. And it pains me to say that as a person that is not a very big fan of Brian Kelly himself. But they have a chance because of their quarterback play. Jaden Daniels did it last year with both his feet and with his legs and his arm. He won big games for them, beat Alabama. You know, they have a chance with they have a lot of things going for them. When you look at them compared to Alabama, when you look at them compared to Georgia, they have a lot of things. They made it to the SEC championship game last year, but lost to Georgia. You know, they bring in Logan Diggs from Notre Dame, which I think is going to be very, very impactful for them. Very good running back. He was a very good running back at Notre Dame, but there was like 3 or 4 of them in the backfield. Now you give him a chance to be a premier back. I think he's going to be very good. You look at the resurgence of Mason Taylor last year at tight end. Harold Perkins on defense. He made great plays last year as a freshman. He's only going to expand on that. LSU's done well in the transfer portal, done well recruiting. Brian Kelly has done well there. This is what every coach does. This is why you get the right guy in LSU that can control it. You're going to be successful because you can get players and you can mold them and build them and grow them into a team to where I think they're going to be very good. Jane Daniels is in his second year in the SEC. They have a legitimate chance to do a lot of good things, and he has a chance to put himself in the Heisman conversation. I think when it comes down to the SEC championship game, I think it'll be Georgia versus LSU, where I think LSU wins the SEC championship game. I think that they are that good with their quarterback. I'd look at a lot of this with quarterbacking. Who do I think is the best quarterback in each conference? And I think that's a good parameter, I think, to do, because with football nowadays, I think you need a quarterback to win, and if you have the best quarterback in the conference, I think you always give yourself a chance. Now, we've seen those things, right? Like, we could make an argument Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the SEC last year over Stetson Bennett, but in moments, Stetson Bennett played great, and Georgia was just a great enough team. But I'd like to look at, when I make my picks off of the quarterback situation, I think LSU in the SEC, as of right now, has the best quarterback, and that's why I'm picking him to win it. All right, now I'm going to talk about Heisman. Look, Caleb Williams clearly won last year. He always has a chance. I'm looking at three guys, though, that I am kind of narrowing it down, and I will pick it here. Three guys I'm looking at is Jaden Daniels at LSU, Quinn Ewers at Texas, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State. Marvin Harrison Jr., to me, with Caleb Williams, is 1. Caleb Williams is 1A, Marvin Harrison Jr. is 1B, when I look at best players in college football. What's going to be tough for Marvin Harrison Jr. is he is a wide receiver with a new quarterback, so that will be very interesting. But I also look at this, you need big games, and you need big games late. He has the Michigan game, the Penn State game would be. If they beat Michigan, you have the Big Ten championship game. So that puts him up there. Jane Daniels is going to have big games. You have the Alabama game, the Florida game about mid-season. You make it to the SEC championship game, you play in that game, gives you a big game. Quinn Ewers, you have the Oklahoma game. There will be other games in the Big 12 that are big. They'll be top 25 ranked matchups, and then you have the Big 12 championship game. So I look at those three right now to be my favorite. If I were to pick one of who's going to win it, it's what's tough, because I've been struggling with this of who I would pick to win the Heisman. I'm going to get rid of Marvin Harrison just because I don't think Ohio State wins the Big Ten, so I will get rid of him. It'll be down to Jaden Daniels and Quinn Ewers. I think right now I'd go with Jaden Daniels to win the Heisman. That's just what I think that LSU can do this year. And with him kind of steering the ship and really helping them, I think that he has a chance to play in big games, make big moments in big games, and win the Heisman Trophy. All right, before I get into my playoff picks, I wanted to kind of go through some of the premier teams in the top 25 and look at what I think their record would be at the end of the year. I think Georgia will be 12-1, like I said, losing to LSU. I think Michigan will be 13-0, beating Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. I think Ohio State will be 11-1, losing to Michigan. I think Alabama will finish 10-2. I think LSU will finish 12-1 with beating Georgia in the SEC title game. I think USC will be 13-0. I think Penn State will be 10-2, losing to both Ohio State and Michigan. I think Florida State will be 10-2, losing to Clemson twice. I think Clemson will be 12-1, beating Florida State, but maybe losing a game along the way. I think Washington will be 10-3 in the Pac-12. Texas being 12-1, beating Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game. I think Texas loses a game along the way. They could lose Oklahoma first, play them again and beat them. I think Tennessee will be 9-3. The SEC East is not as good, and I think Joe Milton's going to show a lot of things, and I think Tennessee has a shot to be a quality team this year, like they were last year. I think Notre Dame finishes 9-3. They have a tough schedule, 3 very, very tough opponents in Ohio State, USC, and Clemson. I think they lose all 3 of them. I think that's going to be very tough to get over. I think they're going to be a very good team, but when you have to play that type of schedule, I don't think you go undefeated. Utah, I think, finishes 9-3. Oregon 9-3. Oklahoma 9-3. Oklahoma State 9-3. Wisconsin 8-4, and then Iowa 9-4, losing to Michigan in the Big Ten title. That's just what I think when I look at some of the programs that are ranked right now in the top 25 preseason. That's where I think they'll be in just an outlook right now. All right, so moving on now to my playoff picks. Who I think is in the 4-team playoff. I think it will be Michigan, number 1 at 13-0. They will play number 4 Texas, who's 12-1. Then I think we'll have USC will be 13-0 undefeated. They'll be playing number 3 LSU, 12-1. And now the arguments can be, Caleb, why Clemson won't be in there, right? They're 13-1, 12-1, whatever you want. They'll be 12-1 the way I think it is. Georgia's there, at 11-1. Ohio State there at 11-1. I just think, I think the quality of these teams that I think that they can be, right? Like if Texas is 12-1, quality team, I think they get in over a Clemson. I really do. Because of what Texas is going to be, I think. Because I think toe-to-toe this year, I think Texas is going to be a better team than Clemson. And then Georgia, Ohio State, if you have 4 of these conference winners, 2 undefeated, 2-1 loss, I think they get in over them. So my playoff picks are Michigan, USC, LSU, and Texas. And then I think in the national title game, I would go Texas versus LSU. I think that both of these teams can be very good. The offenses can be very dynamic. 2 very, very good quarterbacks. Guys that can do it for you when it matters, in my opinion. And then at the end of the day, to win my national title, it will pain me to say this. But I'd go with LSU to win the national title. I think if they can get through the SEC gauntlet, I think if they can get past Georgia in the SEC championship game, like I think that they can, and then beat a team like USC in the playoff with the team that they have with Jaden Daniels pushing them along the way, I think they can win the national title. As much as it would pain for me to say that, as a Notre Dame fan with Brian Kelly, I like the team that they have, and I think that they're going to be very, very good. All right, week 0 picks. 7 games this week. I'm going to pick 7. I don't pick Notre Dame games. So I look at it. UTEP versus V.O.C. State. I'm going to go with UTEP here to win it. UMass versus New Mexico State. New Mexico State is an 8-point favorite. UMass is one of those programs that's just always struggled. So I'm going to go, as I drop my pencil here, I'm going to go with New Mexico State. Ohio versus San Diego State. San Diego State's getting 3.5. I'm going to go with San Diego State. Hawaii versus Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's getting 17. I'll go with Vanderbilt here. San Jose State, USC. USC's a 30-point. I don't even think this is close. I think USC wins and they cover. And then FIU versus Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech's 10-point favorite. I'm going to get a little spice here. I think FIU is going to win this game. Change it up a little bit. Look. That is week 0 picks and preseason outlook. Look, people are going to call me crazy with everything that I said. But look, I like to zig when everybody else zags. I look at it differently. I'm not going to sit here and just because Georgia's won the last 2 years, I'm not going to put them in the playoff. I don't care. Just because Alabama's been Alabama, I'm not going to say they're going to be great. Because those teams are going to go through some struggles. Georgia's schedule will help them. But I think when it comes down to it, when they play a team like LSU, I think they'll lose. So I think LSU is going to win the national title. Jaden Daniels is going to win the Heisman. I'm going all in on LSU Tigers. This could all backfire. They could go 8-4, and I'd sit back and laugh. I'd be fine with that. Maybe I'm trying to curse Brian Kelly with all this. Nobody knows. But that is episode 1 for the 2023 college football season on the V.O.C. YouTube channel. I will see you again next week.